Welcome to Work From Your Happy Place, the podcast that equips you with the tools, know-how, and motivation to live your dreams and find your happy place. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter for a recap of the week's guests and a preview of what's in store. To sign up, simply text the word Happy Place with no space to 33444. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the host of Work From Your Happy Place, Belinda Ellsworth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Work From Your Happy Place. I'm your host, Belinda, and I've got a great guest in store for you. You are just absolutely going to fall in love with her. I have Becca Carnahan with me, and Becca is a mom of two, writer, and career coach from Massachusetts. She is the founder of Becca Carnahan Career and Coaching and Communications, where she specializes in helping women find more joy and fulfillment in their work. She also writes and manages the Working Mom blog with Love Becca, which helps women manage motherhood, manage careers, and manage to laugh through it all. Becca is also the author of two books, Belinda Baloney Changes Her Mind, a fun and inspiring When I Grow Up children's book, and When Mommy Grows Up, a guide to parenting yourself to a more fulfilling career. It is my pleasure to welcome Becca to our show today.
Hi, Belinda. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh gosh, I just can't wait to dive into this. I just have to say I chuckled so hard because I rarely even run into other Belindas. And then when I saw the title of your book, it just it made me laugh. So that is just an interesting title choice.
Yeah, I had never really come across many Belindas before either until after I wrote Belinda Baloney and then started meeting Belindas directly after that. It's such a great name. So I'm glad that my Belinda Baloney gets to share your moniker and be out there in the world.
Oh, that is awesome. It's kind of like when you buy a new car and you think nobody else has it. And then all of a sudden you see it on the road all of the time.
And we did that with both of our cars. We thought we bought a unique color. We didn't. They're everywhere. They're next door.
Oh my goodness. So why don't we just, let's fill in this bio with a little bit of, tell us about your journey, how you came to be this career coach, and a little bit about the journey along the way, and just how you're really serving women today.
Sure. So I started my career, or I spent most of my career working at Harvard Business School. Right out of college, I worked for a year for the Boston Celtics, and then pretty quickly thereafter transitioned to working in higher education, specifically started out in sales and marketing, which is my undergraduate degree. However, after being at Harvard for a little bit of time, I just fell in love with higher education and the connection between education and the world of work, and how higher education can help prepare students to think about all the possible things that they could be when they grow up. So from there, I really grew attached to career services, career development, and that's where I spent most of my 13 years with Harvard, was working in the career services office. During that time, I had my two kids, and a lot of things changed after becoming a mom. So I have two children, Jack, who's 6, Nora, who is 5. And when I had my kids, it was really this big inflection point for me that I loved my work. I loved motherhood. And I was trying to find a way to make it all work as a working mom, while at the same time feeling a little bit lost in where I was in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear this a lot from other moms too, is that you don't lose yourself, but you're just trying to find the thing that's yours when you have so much other things going on that you're responsible for. So at that point, that's when I really started to write, is shortly after my kids were born. I had always written here and there, but I started to write more after becoming a mom. And then as the years progressed and I started writing more and furthering my career and career development, an idea started to crystallize around how can I take all of this, the writing that I love, the career development that I love, and build a business and a life that I love that has flexibility and balance and capitalizes on the skills and the things that I love to do. And that's what led me to starting my own company and kind of leaving my full-time role about a year ago in the middle of a pandemic, which sounds like a crazy thing to do. But that's what I did. Left in September 2020 to focus on my business full time. And that's what I do now. I write books and I coach other moms who are at inflection points similar to one that I was at, about finding the career path that really works well for them and helps meet their goals.
Great. Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of women right now are faced with sort of the same dilemma. And maybe they were always faced with it before, but it has really just come to the surface during this pandemic where we were really forced to press pause and really say, okay, now you have to be at home and you're going to have to do homeschooling and you're going to work from home. And now things are coming back and people are saying, I don't know that I want to go back to that life anymore. In fact, I just, in the latest reports that I heard last week was there's over 5 million women that have decided they're not going back to the exact job that they had or in the way that they had it. So this must be perfect timing for you. And you must also, this is what I'm sure you're hearing more and more of this.
Yes. Exactly. And these were always the moms and the women that I had been working with over the years as I was building my business part-time on the side while I was working full-time. But at this particular point, this past year has been such a whirlwind for everyone, obviously, but for moms. And so many people stepped out of the paid workforce to be managing childcare and homeschool, or they were working from home and managing childcare and homeschool and their full-time jobs. And it allowed people to think about what was possible outside of the life that they had been living up until that point. So if they had been commuting long distances every day, did they want to go back to doing that? Or do they want to find a way to get more time back in their day so they could spend with their family or spend on themselves or have time to get back and make dinner, things that we realized that we could do while working from home. And the other piece of it is people started to reprioritize what they actually wanted to be spending their time doing in their actual work too. They could have come across new hobbies or passions, seeing things through a different perspective, being around their kids and seeing them learning and growing and trying new things. There was a lot of different impetuses, I think, to this huge inflection point for women everywhere around making a change right now. So I'm hearing about it a lot. It was certainly not what I planned for my book, When Mommy Grows Up. This whole idea of parenting yourself to a more fulfilling career, finding more joy and fulfillment in your career. Didn't plan for that to come out right after we got through a lot of a pandemic, but it did. And I think the timing actually, hopefully, can be very helpful for other moms out there.
I absolutely think so. So let's talk a little bit about this transition, because that is the toughest part of it, right? A lot of women, it's kind of like we're on that hamster wheel or that treadmill of life. And you obviously had a successful 13-year career at Harvard. I mean, that's not something that's just easily just to say, I think I'll walk away from that. So talk to us about that transition and how do women manage that? Because I'm sure that's what you get asked a lot about.
And it didn't happen overnight. That's for sure. It's something that I thought about shortly after my son was born. I thought about, oh gosh, like I'm working at Harvard. It's an hour and a half for me to drive in to work and an hour and a half back. How am I going to manage when he goes to kindergarten? I can figure it out with daycare right now, but how am I going to figure this out when he goes to kindergarten? So I started thinking about making the transition way back then when my babies were babies, but I didn't have a plan quite yet. So what I started doing was tapping into the career development tools that I was using with my students, thinking about the best work experiences that they've had. What do they really enjoy about that work? What was it that gave them energy? Thinking about their career and life criteria. What are the things that mattered most to them? and getting that written down and feeling really solid about the things that matter most to you. And then mapping that against potential paths forward and having a lot of conversations, asking questions of people who have done something different with their career or done something that seems really interesting, appealing to you, figuring out how they did it. What were the different ways that they thought about it? So I looked at it as an ongoing learning process of discovering other ways forward to work,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then taking all that information in and thinking about how I could build out a portfolio career for myself that incorporated the writing, incorporated the career coaching that I loved, and incorporated the flexibility that I wanted in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what led me to this place. But it took me several years of asking questions, of continuing to educate myself, of working really hard to pitch my book and to build my blog and to build up a reputation as a career coach until I could comfortably, in September 2020, say, all right, I've built up my business to a place where, yes, now I can take this full time. And I'm still very fortunate to have a close connection back with Harvard Business School. And I still do coaching with Harvard Business School. I still do some writing for Harvard Business School as well. It's because I built up strong relationships there, in
Mm-hmm.
addition to the relationships that I was building outside of Harvard, as I hoped to build my own business.
I love that. So there's a couple of things there I think are really important is one, it's people have an idea and it starts to sort of percolate in their head and then they have fear around sharing that with other
Mm-hmm.
people. And it is really important to ask questions or tell people what you're thinking of doing. And the benefit is one, you get great feedback, but you get to actually hear yourself articulating it. And it's a much different conversation because people will ask you questions. Well, how are you going to do this? Or why
Yeah,
is that important? And when you're having the conversation with yourself, you don't get asked those questions
you
and
really
you don't
don't.
really hear yourself how it all connects. You have an idea that's connecting in your mind, but it's much different than when you're speaking it out loud. So,
Very much so. And I talk about a conversation when mommy grows up, I talk about a conversation with my manager that I had well before leaving Harvard. This was probably 18 months before I was actually giving my notice. I kind of gave her a year and a half notice and told her, these are the things that I want to be doing more of in my work. I was in a very operational focused role. It's like, but I love to write. I want to be more creative in my work. I love to coach. I want to be making sure I'm spending time doing that. And I told her about the bus thing, that I wanted to get my kid off the bus when he went to kindergarten. And having that conversation, that open, honest conversation with her, uh, that allowed me to find more pockets of growth opportunity within my current role, which is something I talk with people a lot about, is how can you job shift or job shape your current role that can prepare you for the next step. There were opportunities there that I just hadn't raised my hand high enough for, that could
okay.
help me do more writing, do more coaching to prepare me for this next step. And then talking with my husband about how do I really have this idea of I want to take my blog and make it into a business. And he's very analytical. So he was like, okay, well, how? I'm like, well, I don't know. I just want to do it. So he kind of forced me to think about it in a different way, think about the different income streams and to research that further. So I really appreciated both his very analytical, business-minded perspective on it that helped me put some structure around this new business I was going to create. And then my manager, who's also a fellow career coach, who was just incredibly supportive and helped me think about different ways to grow so that I would be ready for that opportunity when the time came. And
And
that's
I
all came from sharing.
absolutely, oh, yes, absolutely. And I love it that, um, like, it's an important thing to not, don't burn those bridges either. Just because
Yeah.
you're leaving someplace, it's like you might be able to take this new skill set and work in a, contractual situation.
Hmm.
And that oftentimes happens if you've built good relationships and you keep good, honest, open communication.
That's huge. And it's something that people don't necessarily think about is how can you stay connected with your current network. Networking isn't all about going out to like the wine and cheese mixer and meeting new people and trying to get into a new network. It can be about cultivating your current network and the people that are in your life, in your work circle. How can you make sure that you're talking with them and learning and growing together with them, so that potentially you can work together again in the future? And I'm so fortunate to
Mm-hmm.
still be doing contract work with Harvard right now. That's a huge part of my kind of portfolio career that I've built. I do writing projects for Harvard. I do coaching for Harvard, in addition to having my own coaching clients and my own writing projects. I love the variety. I like being in control of my own schedule. I like the autonomy of it. I like being a business owner, but I also like staying connected to these different parts of my past professional life. It's incredibly fulfilling, and it works. Everyone's going to have a different way of working. There's not only one way to be an entrepreneur. There's not only one way to be a working mom. You can craft that in so many different ways. And I like to put mine forth as one example, but more so as just something like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about how I could work differently in a way that works well for me. If I can get that message out there, like, whew, beautiful. That's makes me so happy.
Absolutely, because it might just be doing something different with the current job you have or taking those skills and just shaping them differently instead of
Mhm.
just saying, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Right. And
I
maybe
think,
you will shift completely. Maybe you'll go from like working in higher education to going and, I don't know, starting a traveling circus. There's lots of ththings that you could do, but you can pull a single lever too. One lever of change that can just, that's all you might be all you need, is one lever of change to get you to where you want to be. Or you can go ahead and pull all those levers and do something completely different. You might still be using your skills that you've built just in a different way, these transferable skills that make us adaptable and able to succeed in different settings.
so that's great. That leads us to our next question, which is, have you identified what two of your greatest skill sets are, like your
Mhm.
superpowers?
Yeah. I would say my two biggest superpowers are listening skills. And that comes from a few things. It comes from being a daughter of a very successful salesman. He was successful in sales because he was a great listener and he was just asking good questions of people, so that he could understand what their problem was before trying to help them solve it. And that's all about what career coaching is really deeply listening to
Mhm.
people so that you can figure out what makes them tick before you just start firing off solutions. You're trying to work together towards a solution that actually makes sense for them. So that's one of them. It's kind of listening and curiosity, I guess, mixed together. And then I think the other one is just being able to have a sense of humor about life. And that stemmed from earliest days, from my childhood, from my upbringing to being a mom, being able to laugh at things. And that's what I try to bring into my business, my books, my everything that I do. I'm trying to do it both with heart and listening and empathy, but also with humor, to make this career development stuff can sound really boring or intimidating or scary or just I don't want to do it. But if you can make it relatable and fun, and have infuse that sense of humor, like that's when you can really get people excited about thinking about their futures.
Oh, that's great. Let's talk about outstanding accomplishment. So these are just kind of two couple quick ones.
Uh-huh.
So does one stand out for you? That's something you're really proud of?
I am really proud of over this past year, putting out my 2 books. They're
Yes.
my little book babies. And so the first one, like you mentioned, Belinda Baloney Changes Her Mind. That was a children's book that I wrote when I was sitting in traffic, and had this idea just pop into my mind about. We always talk to kids about what they want to be when they grow up, and kind of expect them to maybe have an answer, maybe just one answer to that. However, how much more fun would it be if we can infuse this idea with children about you can change your mind when you're 10, you can change your mind when you're 102. Like, you can change your mind and explore different career options along the way. That's all part of the journey. So I wanted to create a fun children's book that spoke to that message. So I wrote Belinda Baloney. I spoke it into my phone, talked to my sister-in-law about it, and she did all the illustrations. So I'm just super proud of her, too, for bringing
Oh,
Belinda Baloney to life. It's just a project very close to my heart. And then I had been working on writing When Mommy Grows Up for about 3 years. So getting that book contract, and seeing it actually out in the world, seeing it be available on Amazon and Target and Barnes and Noble. It's like, it's amazing to see my name on a book, because I'm such a book nerd. I loved books my entire life, and those 2 projects, I think, are particularly close to my heart because it's bringing together the career side that I'm really passionate about, along with the writing, infused with the humor. It's just everything that I love about work shows up in those 2 books.
Oh, that is so great. And you know what? Writing a book it's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing. And it does feel like birthing a child when it's finally done, because the whole
Yeah.
process does take about 9 months once you finally get that contract.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and then it is just seeing your name on a book. My daughter was so funny when my book came out. She was probably I'm going to say 11 maybe, but she would go into the bookstore and ask for the book, and then the person would go and they'd find it for her, and then she would just say, "That's my mom." And then I finally said, "Honey, quit wasting these people's time."
But how sweet.
She would do it over and over. We'd go to another bookstore and she would ask them to please help her find it. And then she would say, "That's my mom." It was
That
cute.
is the cutest thing. I love it. And isn't it so awesome, like, when you, as a parent, to be able to share those dreams with your kids, and to say,
Mm-hmm.
like, this was mom's dream, of thing that she wanted to do. And I think back on my parents and how much they instilled in me about going after the things that you want to go after, and hard work, and setting goals for yourself. And I want to have that for my kids too. I want them to see that. And
Yeah.
so, as much as they're my accomplishments and things that I am proud of, I'm happy that I can share that with my kids. And so I love that story that you shared about your daughter. I think those are the kind of things that make it just, they take it to the next level, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the opposite of that, what's been one of your greatest challenges, or things that you've had obstacle that you've had to work through?
Yeah. Um, I'm going to be super vulnerable with you here, Belinda, and
Okay.
just share it with you. So, becoming a mom was something that I always knew that I wanted to be a mom. I knew that from the earliest days. I'd carry my Cabbage Patch doll around. I wanted to be a mom. And I guess I always had this feeling that when I wanted to be a mom, I could just go be a mom. And before my 2 children, Jack and Nora, were born, we had 3 miscarriages. And those babies that we lost, play such an instrumental role in my life. And I think back on that time of those losses, and of this hope that someday that we would be parents together, me and my husband. It really shaped me in so many ways, of thinking about loss, and thinking about grief, and thinking about life, too, or just like how much you have control over and what you don't have control over.
Mm-hmm.
It was an incredibly challenging time, in our lives, and I'm grateful for that time, because I think it helped me to connect with other women who had experienced the same thing and weren't able to talk about it, didn't have someone to talk about this pain with.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, as someone who has writing out there in the world, I talk about my miscarriages. I talk about that pain so that other people don't feel as alone with it. It's not easy to
Mm-hmm.
talk about. It makes me kind of, as I'm sitting here talking about it, like you can feel it. It's like it's there. It's still always like kind of bubbling up in your chest, but um, I do talk about it because I think someone else might need to hear it.
Well, I think that's right. I think that whenever anybody is going through any obstacle or challenge, whatever it is in their life, we often feel like we're carrying that burden all alone.
Yeah.
And in 99.9% of the cases, whatever it is you're going through, someone else has experienced that same thing. And just there's comfort in knowing that someone else has gone through that. And there's comfort in knowing they've come out, how they handled it or how they came out on the other side of it or how they still deal with it. And I think that that's important because when we live in that space of, oh my gosh, I'm going through this and no one else has, or, I'm alone, like it's really, I'm alone in this. That's when things are really tough for people. I think the more that we can share, the more that we can talk, the more that we can let people know about our experiences, the failures, the struggles, the obstacles, then other people, especially women, because we carry so much with us. And it just gives us hope, I think. I think that's what it does for people. So I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. It was a lifeline for me hearing from other women. When I did share like with a small group of people what we were going through, and I remember a director at my office sitting down with me and being like, yeah, I did too. We had lost 3 babies, and like let's talk about it. Let's talk about like what was. And then she went on, and her 3 daughters that she has now, and I remember just listening to her story and feeling like okay, maybe this is going to be okay and someone else gets this. And I think I carry a lot of that. And I'm really just formulating this in my mind as we're talking right now. I think I carry a lot of that into the work that I do working in career development with moms right now too, is like making sure that they know that if they're feeling this pull to do something different, or they're feeling lost in some way, or that they're at this inflection point and they don't know what to do, that they aren't alone. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
feel this sense of career confusion at some point. It doesn't mean that you made a bad choice at some point. It doesn't mean that you are clueless and don't know what to do. It just means that people come across these inflection points, and you're not alone. A lot of people will get through this, and sharing the stories, which I do a lot of on my blog, is like sharing the stories of how people end up finding their own career sweet spot. It can be inspiring. So I think there is a connection, I guess, there between being open about what we went through and
Mm-hmm.
with miscarriage, and being open about your career hopes and dreams, which I didn't put together until right now. So thank you. You're bringing this out of me.
All right. I love that. But it is so true because people they feel guilt around, I hear this all the time. Well, I went to school for this, or I did this, or I've been working here for 13 years. People depend on me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's another guilt that people carry. If I leave, the whole organization is going to fall apart, or whatever the case may be. And then there's guilt for, am I going to be able to provide for my family? How much time is it going to take if I try to start something new?
Yep.
Because you have to kind of work both at the same time. I mean, you kind of showed that. And that's what I always tell people. You're going to have to work kind of hard for a little bit to get that transition. But there's a lot of guilt around that. And if they can hear stories of how other people successfully did that, that's how I try to do this on the show. Like, tell me about your journey. Because the one thing that's frustrating for me, and I know it's frustrating for listeners because I've interviewed people or surveyed people, And people are like, oh yeah, I was broke in this. And then, and now I'm making 7 figures. And it's like, that makes people that are sitting out there trying to figure it all out say, I am a loser because
Right.
I didn't do it that fast, or I didn't do it like that. And it's like, no, there's a journey in here. Like you are not an overnight, sensation. And that's the story that people are telling so often today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really did this show the way that I did. I want people to find their passion, but at the same time, tell me the journey, because it wasn't, oh, I woke up one day and decided I was going to do this. And then poof, I went and did it. And it was all roses.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And like I told you, like this was an idea that started to bubble up to it wasn't even an idea yet. It was just like an itch, I guess, when my son was born. And then it took 5.5 years to get to that point. And I looked around after a couple of years and looking at other people being like, oh, they're at this place, and how do they get there faster, and what can I be doing differently? And it's a good thing to be looking at other people and figuring out how they may have sped up their process, and to learn from them too. But yeah, it takes time. I put in the hours, and it's worth it. It's worth putting in the hours, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of early mornings.
Absolutely. So what does working from your happy place mean to you?
Mm-hmm. I laugh and smile when I talk about this because I remember the conversation I mentioned earlier about talking with my manager and how much I wanted to have writing be a big part of my work and life, and how I would take a day off of work sometimes if I had extra vacation time to sit at my back deck and get myself a muffin and sit on my laptop and just write. That's what I would do if I had a vacation day to myself. And that's what my life is now, is that I don't always have a muffin every day, although I wish I had a muffin every day. But I can go, as part of my work is to go sit on my back deck with my laptop and write. And that's my happy place, is being outside, being in the fresh air, being able to just like get my thoughts and ideas down on paper, connect with people through writing. That is such an important part of my happy place. But at the same time, so that's piece of it. And then the other piece of it is talking and connecting with people through career coaching. And when I get that email from someone, or I get the phone call from someone saying like, Becca, I got the job. Like I got this dream job that I didn't think I would get, or I pressed publish on my website and my business is up and running. I got my first client. That just fills me with so much of this, like that's a happy place too, So
yes.
it's both. It's being able to use my skills as a career coach to help people directly one-on-one, while also embracing some of my more introverted tendencies and like going to sit alone on the back deck. So I think I love the title, working from your happy place, because that's the goal, right? Is to spend as much of your time in your happy place as possible. Work doesn't have to be this thing that you drag yourself off to. Work can be your happy place. And it is for me. It really is.
That is so awesome. So what advice would you give to others that are wanting to take this leap? They're kind of, and this is right in your wheelhouse. So like maybe just 3 pieces of advice that for people that are wanting to do exactly this.
Yeah. Okay. If I was to break it into three steps on this, one would be to focus on some self-reflection, to figure out what really matters most to you, and not just in one area of your life. What are the things that matter most to you from a family perspective? How about your other relationships in your life? What about how much money do you need to be making in order to meet the goals that you have? What work really gives you energy instead of sucking it dry? Those types of things. Do that self-reflection. The next part would be to ask a lot of good questions. So you can think about this as networking if you want, or you can think about it as just going out and asking good questions, but talking with people and trying to figure out what their different paths were so you can explore. And then the third one would be to side hustle. Especially if you are, so not just if you want to be an entrepreneur, but that's definitely a very possible path towards entrepreneurship is to build something on the side. But having a side hustle or something that you're doing outside of your working hours, it can help prepare you for another role too. So if you're wanting to make a transition into a different industry or different function, building something that's your own, doing some contract work, building out your own website, doing whatever it is that is just your thing. That's the kind of stuff that you can put on your resume. That's the kind of stuff you can talk about in an interview. It doesn't need to be paid work or full-time work to be something that is part of your professional portfolio. So those are my 3 quick hits. I could probably give you a whole lot more, but if we were to break it down there, that's what I would do.
That is fantastic. So this has been delightful. I've enjoyed our interview so much. And so are there any new and exciting things that you're working on that you'd love our listeners to know about? And then please let them know where they can find you.
Yes. So I've talked about my books ad nauseum, so I'll stop talking about my book babies. But if they do want to find my books, I guess Belinda Baloney Changes Her Mind and When Mommy Grows Up, they are both out and at bookstores and online. And then for anyone who's kind of thinking about this big question around what's next in their career, over this the past few months, kind of put together an online workshop around that question. So I do one-to-one coaching, but I know that doesn't work for everyone. Not everyone can invest the time or the resources into one-to-one coaching. So I wanted to find something that was more on-demand style for all those busy moms out there, so they can tap into the same tools and same questions and prompts and activities that I do with my one-to-one clients through the What's Next Career Workshop. So that's all available, the books, the course, the coaching, it's all on my website, which is beccacarnahan.com. Super simple.
Perfect. And your Facebook or LinkedIn, where is your social platform?
Yeah, so I'm kind of all over the place. But if you want to find me on Instagram, it is with_love_Becca. That is my Instagram handle. Same thing for Twitter. And then if you're over on Facebook or on LinkedIn, if you just look me up under Becca Carnahan, that'll pop up.
All right. Well, this has been wonderful having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.
Yes. And to all of our listeners out there, thanks so much for tuning in to Work From Your Happy Place. I'm sure you've gleaned lots of little pearls of wisdom. Always go back and listen again. Please leave us a rate and review. And don't forget to share us with a friend. That is the best form of compliment that we can receive. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on Work From Your Happy Place.
Thanks for joining us at Work From Your Happy Place. If you like what you hear, please share it with your friends. And be sure to rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher. For a free gift on finding your own happy place, please visit workfromyourhappyplace.com and click on the free audio button. Thanks again for listening.